First of all, if you have a Nintendo Switch and you have never played Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, what are you doing with your life? Pick up this game and play it. It's literally a staple for Nintendo Switch owners. Trust me. What's up, guys, and welcome to the channel. My name is Dusty, and I'm one half of Outradiant Gaming, and today we're going to talk about everything we know about Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2. Breath of the Wild was released March 3rd of 2017, and it was literally revolutionary for Legend of Zelda fans and for Nintendo fans in general. This game is literally in my top 3, probably even my number 1 favorite game of all time. I literally remember the first time I played this game, and I feel like most people that have ever played this game remembers the first time they played this game. I would literally just walk around for hours. I actually took forever to beat this game because I didn't want it to be over. I would walk around and just explore the mountains and just go around and kill stuff to get meat and just do random stuff, side quests, just explore for hours upon hours upon hours without even touching the main story because the game was so fun. And I know I'm not the only one that done that. I know there was plenty of people that had done that. And I know that there's people that beat this game years later because they was like, I just don't want it to be over. And honestly, this is really the first game that I ever experienced like that. And I feel like there's a lot of people out there that feel that same way. Fast forward to E3 of 2019, Breath of the Wild 2 got announced, and you talk about hype. I'm pretty sure I literally remember exactly where I was. I think my wife and I was getting ready to go somewhere. I don't know exactly where, but I remember they announced it, and I was like, are you kidding me? Breath of the Wild 2? This is crazy. I was literally ecstatic. Then, of course, E3 of 2020 got canceled, and then you fast forward to E3 of 2021, and they released yet another trailer. And even though the game was announced in E3 of 2019, a lot of this game is still a mystery. Big surprise for a Legend of Zelda game, right? Wrong. Seriously. Even though we're sitting in February of 2022, and we know that 2022 was the year that Breath of the Wild 2 was supposed to be released, that's a lot of twos, there is still not a lot of information about Breath of the Wild 2 aside from rumors and leaks. Really, there's not a lot. Nintendo has kept secret about a lot, and honestly, it's clear why. This is, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, the most anticipated game of 2022. And I mean, like I said earlier, it's clear why. This game was huge for Nintendo fans, and heck, gamers really everywhere. There are people that bought a Nintendo Switch just to play Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I would say that Nintendo is aware of this, clearly. They want to keep the anticipation going. They want to make sure that us fans are happy with the game, and they want to make sure that everything is finished. They don't want to just go out and release a bunch of stuff and then everybody be like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. That was, 2 years ago. Let me just try to get hype about it again. No, they want to keep the anticipation going, I am sure. One thing is for sure, though, with the trailers we have been shown, it does seem like we are exploring the same Hyrule as we explored in Breath of the Wild 1. I'm sure that they'll be adding more stuff. And it looks to me like in the E3 of 2019 trailer that we're underneath the castle. It seems to me like in some sort of dungeon. And then obviously in the 2021 trailer, we are Skyward with a sword. Get it? Skyward Sword. And the reason I say that is because the E3 2019 trailer was dark. It was very, very, very dark, very morbid looking, very creepy. Ganon was terrifying. And then E3 of 2021 gave us another trailer that showed really what looked like me running around on Breath of the Wild 1, just exploring the beautiful scenery. But it really looked to have a lot of inspiration from Skyward Sword, and a lot of fans clearly picked up on that. It was blatantly obvious. There's some paragliding in the clouds and then some free falling from the sky, which really looks a lot like Skyward Sword. And then some other things we have picked up in these trailers is a mysterious new glove on Link's right hand that seems to have taken place of the Sheikah Slate. And then there's a water puddle like going backwards in time, like going upwards. It's very, very odd. And then one of the bolder enemies that was in Breath of the Wild 1 is shown in this trailer as well, except with a bokoblin fort on its back. It's literally awesome. And that's why I think that there's still going to be a lot of Breath of the Wild 1 themes in the Breath of the Wild 2 trailer. I mean, Breath of the Wild 1 was massive, like I said. Like, I literally compare every single game I played to Breath of the Wild, and I usually end up getting disappointed because you can just tell the heart that went into Breath of the Wild. You really can see how much time they put into it and how much they wanted to make it phenomenal. And I think the fact that we do see a bokoblin fort on the back of this stone enemy really just lets us know how much time and effort they're putting into this game. They're bulking up some of the old enemies we have just so it doesn't feel exactly the same and giving us new stuff to really be excited for. And then both trailers show us that something is clearly going on with the castle and Ganon. Surprised, right? And not only do we see the land masses floating, we actually, by the end of the second trailer, see the castle floating as well. And of course, like you wouldn't expect to see something like this, like it looks as good as these trailers do in any other game. But since this game uses the same engine, I think that they have a lot done. And I think that's why this game is going to be so crazy good, is because they have the same engine and it just gives them more room to work and just lets them add and add and add to this game. And I really have my expectations set high for this game, as I'm sure most fans do. And although the game does look phenomenal in both trailers and we do expect a lot of it to already be done, there is one thing we still don't know, and that's the official release date. By the end of the second trailer, all we really see is 2022. And since Breath of the Wild 1 released in March of 2017, a lot of fans were really hoping and expecting a March of 2022 release. It's February. That's impossible, unfortunately. Actually, speaking on the IGN Games podcast, Pierre Snyder, co-founder of IGN, actually mentioned something about playing Breath of the Wild in November of 2022. And of course, no one really knows. It's kind of just up in the air at this point. And November of 2022 actually lines up with a lot of the leaks we've had so far. And considering we see nothing about Breath of the Wild at the February Nintendo Direct, November of 2022 definitely seems super likely. A lot of fans have said, though, that they believe that the next Breath of the Wild 2 information we get will be at E3 2022, hopefully with a new trailer and a release date. Of course, no one really knows. It's just something a lot of fans have said. Considering the past 2 trailers we've had has been in at E3, this makes a lot of sense. And it makes a lot of sense, especially since we think that they want to target a Christmas of 2022 date. And this game is so anticipated, I think that's a perfect time for them to release it, because all of these gamers that want this game, that really don't get games until Christmas, could get this game and then their sales would skyrocket. As far as when we get the next trailer, though, I do think that there is a slight chance we could get a random trailer sprung on us like Nintendo likes to do, since this game is so anticipated, and just have something that solely revolves around Breath of the Wild rather than getting overshadowed by other games at an E3. As far as the mechanics we will have in Breath of the Wild 2, the new trailer actually shows off a lot of those. It clearly looks to me like we will have some of the old mechanics that we have, as the new trailer shows some sort of stasis, but in a little different form. It also shows, like I said, Link going through the roof of some sort of landmass, which is clearly hard to miss. And then, like I said, the water puddle reverting in time. And then Link shooting some sort of fire from a shield. I don't know what that's about. But there does seem to be a lot of new mechanics that we will get to explore. What those exactly are have not been mentioned. And speaking of mechanics, there are a lot of interesting patents that Nintendo has patented with the World Intellectual Property Organization, or WIPO for short, that seems to be Breath of the Wild 2 mechanics. One patent actually describes the ability to perform a special action, including a shooting action of shooting a predetermined object. Now, the diagram in the patent actually looks to me like in the trailer when Link is like falling with his arms spread out. That's what it reminds me of, and it clearly looks to me like that's what's happening. And then another patent describes a designated object selected based on an operation input caused to perform return movement to return to previously recorded positions and orientations sequentially backward from the time of giving a start instruction based on the operation input. To me, that sounds like Link is able to reverse the trajectory of an object, and I think we clearly see that in the trailer that was released at E3 of 2021, where he pushes the spiky things back to where they came from, get back to where they belong. And then the last patent describes a scenario as a ceiling is present above the player character, and that a destination on the terrain object at which the player character is placeable is present above the ceiling located above the player character. The information processing apparatus moves the player character to the destination based on operation input performed by the player. To me, I think we see this in the trailer where Link seems to like go like a ghost through the top landmass that's above him and end up on the top of it. And of course, take these with a grain of salt, as Nintendo actually hasn't confirmed these, but I really don't know what else they would be for, but still take them with a grain of salt just because they haven't been confirmed. Speaking of taking stuff with a grain of salt, I can't help but throw this in there. Do you remember the Nintendo Switch Pro rumors? I do, because the whole time they were rumored, all I could think about was playing Breath of the Wild 2 in 4K. I still actually think about it every time I think about this game. That's why I'm bringing it up. Now, when these rumors were out, I was 1000% on the train. I wanted it to happen, and then the OLED happened, and it kind of put a damper on all these rumors, and actually I just stopped paying attention to them because I didn't want to get let down anymore. Although a lot of leakers have said the OLED was just a dummy upgrade before the Nintendo Switch Pro, I just choose to wait and see if it happens. When it happens, it happens. I don't know. I just wanted to ask you guys, could you imagine playing Breath of the Wild 2 in 4K? How amazing would that be? But in the meantime, while you wait for Breath of the Wild 2 and the rumored Nintendo Switch Pro, why don't you play Skyward Sword HD if you haven't already? Skyward Sword HD was released in July of 2021, which was directly after we got this E3 of 2021 trailer that got us all hype and was like, oh my gosh, this looks a lot like Skyward Sword. And a lot of fans were comparing the two, especially since they were out at the same time. But not only was Breath of the Wild 2 compared to Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, it was actually compared to Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask as well. Of course, we know that Breath of the Wild 2 is a direct sequel to Breath of the Wild 1, the same way that Majora's Mask was a direct sequel to Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Actually, Bill Trennan, senior marketing manager of Nintendo America, spoke with IGN on a podcast about the comparison between Majora's Mask and Breath of the Wild 2. He said, I would say it's an easy comparison or conclusion to jump to at this point in time, just given what's been shown so far and given the nature of it being a direct sequel. So I understand people making that conclusion, but at the same time, and I don't want to dive too much into it, but this is its own game. Now, this is very reassuring to me, as it feels to me like Breath of the Wild 2 isn't just going to be some bigger Breath of the Wild 1 DLC, but it's actually going to be its own game. I love that. Trennan went on to say that I think as we start to show a bit more of the game over the coming months to the next year or so, it'll probably start to be a bit more apparent where this game stands on its own and what makes it so unique. The way that Breath of the Wild 2 builds on Breath of the Wild, which already was such an expansive game with so many layers of Link's abilities and layers of the gameplay, I think this is going to layer quite a bit more into that. This literally just makes me so much more excited for Breath of the Wild 2. Like, let's go. I'm ready for this game to be out. Bill Trennan also did touch on the fact of why we don't have an official title for Breath of the Wild 2 yet. Of course, if you don't know already, Breath of the Wild 2 is not the official title for the next Legend of Zelda game. Although it is a Breath of the Wild sequel, the title is not actually Breath of the Wild 2. Trennan stated, as for why we're holding back on the name, you'll just have to stay tuned because obviously Zelda names are kind of important. Those subtitles, they start to give little bits of hints about maybe what's going to happen. So it's clear to me that the title of this game is going to let us know a lot about what's going on with the game. And I think it's cool. Personally, I love the fact that they haven't released the official title yet for Breath of the Wild 2, which is not the actual title. I think it adds to the anticipation of the game. I think that they know that fans are eating this up and they're really, really, really wanting the name and they're wanting this game to come out and they're like, oh my gosh, we have nothing. And I think they know that. And I think they know that this is building the anticipation, which will create bigger payoff when the game is actually released. And although we don't have a title, it is clear that the next Legend of Zelda game, Breath of the Wild 2, or whatever it's called, will be a lot darker than Breath of the Wild. Why do I think that? The E3 of 2019 trailer, the very first one, is super dark. Crawling through that dungeon looks super creepy. It just has dark tones throughout the whole trailer. Zelda series producer Eiji Aonuma stated via IGN that this game would actually be a little darker than Majora's Mask. And of course, there are tons and tons and tons of leaks and rumors about this game and what the story could be like and what is going to be happening in Breath of the Wild 2 if you're interested in looking those up. It's actually kind of hard to make videos like this without talking about leaks and rumors because there are so many. And considering Nintendo really hasn't confirmed anything, really a lot of the news we have is with leaks and rumors. And although those do come true sometimes, they're still not confirmed by Nintendo, so they're not 100% true and should always be taken with a grain of salt. I'd actually like to make a video in the future about my favorite rumors for Breath of the Wild 2 and my favorite storyline speculations that people have made. And fans have a lot of great ideas and a lot of theories. But we'll save that for another video. If you guys are interested in that, be sure to hit the subscribe button as I will try my best to make that in the future. And if you're sitting there wondering, like, why are they even making a Breath of the Wild 2? Why aren't they just making a brand new game instead? Why are they making a sequel to Breath of the Wild? And personally, I think that's pretty obvious. Breath of the Wild was so massive, and like I said, it literally blew me away from the first time I played it. I think that they know how big this game is in fans' hearts, and I think that making a brand new game would really have done a disservice to Breath of the Wild. Actually, according to Aonuma, they had so many ideas for DLC for this game, they actually just went ahead and made a brand new game from the ground up, which I think is hilarious. I love the fact that they didn't just encapsulate all this into a DLC and just have us keep paying for DLC that could have really done a disservice to this game as well. Instead, they're making a game that is huge that they know we will love. I 1000% think that a sequel was the perfect move and definitely the right move for them. And that's all I have for today, guys. Thank you guys for sticking around, for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any information, feel free to drop it in the comment section below. I'd love to read those. My wife and I do stream over on Twitch if you'd be willing to check that out. The link will be in the description. I would love for you guys to come over there and chat with us. We have such a good time over there. And again, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, be sure to hit the like button. It helps me out a ton. Also, be sure to hit the subscribe button for future videos. Turn on the bell so you don't miss one of them. And again, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Everyone have an awesome day. God bless. This is one half of Our Radiant Gaming signing off.